This is VOCM Open Line. Call now to get in the queue. 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's your host, Brian Callahan.
Well, good morning, everyone. Linda Swain in for Brian Callahan, who is off today. He should be back in the saddle again now tomorrow. Well, what a weekend. It's been coming for years, as we all know, but the Canada-U.S. trade relations have reached a new low, and it's quite extraordinary what is currently facing us right now. The seriousness of the current situation cannot be understated. On Friday, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that he had instructed his negotiating team to suspend talks with the United States based on a number of serious concerns related to a trade deal that, by all previous accounts, was about to be finalized. And Carney says among the greatest concerns was the threat to Canadian sovereignty, with demands that go well beyond economic and trade issues to matters that really are of no concern to anyone outside of Canada. They include protections to Canadian culture and to the French language, including bilingual labeling and support for French and Canadian programming. Donald Trump's immediate response, and it came, by the way, via Truth Social, of course, a day after Mark Carney's extraordinary address on Saturday morning, was that Canada wants the benefits of a U.S. state without being one. And that's telling, because it suggests that Trump really does not see Canada as a sovereign nation, and that the lack of respect for sovereignty is something we're seeing playing out in devastating fashion in other parts of the world. So, the 50% tariffs that Trump had been threatening are now in place, and Carney has indicated that those tariffs will be matched dollar for dollar by Canada on American goods. What does it mean? Well, it means that the high prices we're currently paying will go up again. Was there a way out of this? It seems as though there was no alternative. As Carney indicated, it became clear that any trade deal with the United States may not be binding anyway. He even went as far as to make the analogy that any deal might be signed in pencil. Canadians and the premiers, including Tony Wakeham, are behind the premier's stand right now. But will that still be the case when the economic pressures start squeezing industry, start affecting jobs, start saddling households already struggling with the rising cost of living with even greater expenses? Life is getting more expensive, of course, in the U.S. because essentially a tariff is a tax, and it will have to be downloaded onto American business and industry and ultimately consumers. Trump himself is facing growing political pressure in the United States, and one would think unless he really doesn't understand the impact of his actions, he may have to relent with just 2 months to midterm elections. I noticed David Frum in The Atlantic saying this isn't about who is bigger and able to inflict more pain, which appears to be the stance that Donald Trump is taking. Frum's argument is that the war will be decided by who can endure more pain. And right now, Mark Carney has much more political permission to accept pain from a trade war than Trump does. The American people just will not tolerate, rising costs, and he will suffer the results of that. So, do we wait it out? It appears as though that may be our only choice, but the failure, many argue, is Trump's. And I noticed a headline from the satirical site, The Beaverton, which pretty much encapsulates, I think, how many view Trump's economic attack on Canada with, I think it was something to the effect of, author of Art of the Deal fails to reach economic agreement with world's friendliest nation. So, it's a lot to absorb and take in. What will the immediate impact be? How will it affect our crab fishery, for instance, the bulk of which is bound for U.S. restaurants? What will it mean for the mining industry, which is poised on the cusp of massive expansion, especially in light of increased energy promised in a new deal reached with Quebec? What will it mean for our forestry sector? What will it mean for Churchill Falls? Could the latest developments and the resources that will be necessary to respond here in Canada to this economic attack place that deal in jeopardy? I know we're in the early days, but these are all questions that I'm sure have crossed through many people's minds. And by the way, it's not lost here in Newfoundland and Labrador that this new low point in our relationship with our neighbours to the south comes just a couple of weeks before we mark the 25th anniversary of one of the darkest days in United States history. The terrorist attacks, of course, on September 11th of 2001, when U.S. airspace was closed in light of that horror that was unfolding in New York and Washington and Pennsylvania. And Newfoundland and Labrador took in with open arms thousands of stranded airline passengers. Planes landed here in St. John's, they landed in Stephenville, Deer Lake, Goose Bay, and of course, as we all know, in Gander. And we're about to mark that extraordinary and terrible situation in Gander, where the goodness of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, the goodness of the people of Canada, the goodness of human compassion shone through a very dark period in recent history. So it's all very interesting, isn't it? Anyway, that's just one of numerous things that we are talking about these days, but I'm going to leave it there for the time being because we're going to go straight to our callers right now, and we're going to start the show with John Hogan, who is leader of the official opposition. Hello, John.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. What a weekend.
You had a lot to say starting off this morning on Monday.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, a lot to absorb, and a lot to ponder. What were your thoughts when you started processing all of that?
I like a lot of Canadians and Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, like most, I think, I have a lot of faith and complete faith in Prime Minister Carney. So certainly when I was at the table with the other premiers, it was always a Team Canada approach. And, most, if not all, premiers said they'd rather say no to a deal than sign a bad deal. And I think that's what you're seeing Prime Minister Carney say last week. And I think you see all the premiers lining up behind them. Unfortunately, we're stuck with President Trump for another couple of years. We'll certainly see how he does in the midterms coming up. But I appreciate his approach to this and his steadfast leadership and making sure that all Canada's aligned. Newfoundland and Labrador is not immune from the effects of tariffs, but fortunately we do have a diverse economy where I think we don't feel the economic downturn like some other provinces will. So that's good to see. But at the same time, I think it's important for our provincial government to reach out to industries across the province to see what their needs are. We had a roundtable that was ongoing during when this all started a couple of years ago. And I know people throughout the province who can face economic uncertainty, as you mentioned in particular, our fishery and our crab, to make sure that they're protected and that the government is there to help them if and when it's needed. Because these things change with President Trump almost on a daily basis, of course. I know there was talk about putting alcohol back on shelves last week. I didn't think that was a good idea because this is what happens. I mean, he changes his mind. He changes how he does things. I think the alcohol sales and the decrease of American alcohol sales in Canada has affected him and affected Americans. And I think we need to continue to apply that pressure and focus on what's important for Canadians and Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Yeah, I have a call into NLC just to see, to clarify what their official stand is now. I suspect that it's going to be different than what it was on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And I know I heard Premier Wakem say, well, we can put it back on the shelves and hopefully nobody buys it. But unfortunately, NLC still has to pay the price of that. So I think pumping more money into the American economy right now is the wrong move for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and for Canadians.
So, I mean, we had this extraordinary news last week about this new deal that had been reached on Churchill Falls. And of course, then the winds blew through on the weekend and sort of, shadowed all of that. But concerns remain. And I know that the opposition had put out a release talking about, in particular, this wheeling power through to the United States and all those kinds of things. What are some of your concerns now that you've had some time to absorb this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly one of the things that they were touting as a big win in this new agreement was more transmission. And as you look at the agreement, and this is not political spin, I can read the part of the contract to you, there's absolutely no new transmission from Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro into American markets. What the Premier said last week, it's his words, I quote, "We've secured the ability to transmit power from Churchill Falls and Gull Island through Quebec to the U.S. marketplace." And you see other people, not just me, just saying that's absolutely not true. What we do have in this contract is the ability to sell to Quebec. So we're just getting the price that Quebec is getting when they sell power to the American markets. So to say that we have wheeling power and the ability to, call electrical entities in the United States and New England and Boston and New York and say, we have power. What kind of price can we offer you? What will you buy it at? We will get it from Labrador down to you through Quebec. Just fundamentally not true. It's not what the deal says, and it's not what the Premier is telling Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So, I know a lot of people on Facebook over the week were questioning the fact that, the first campaign promise was a referendum, and he's backed away from that. And now I don't think he's being upfront about what these transmission costs are and what transition routes are and what that really means. So, credibility is an issue here. I think politicians, and in particular the leader of the province, need to be upfront and clear to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians about what the deal is, not play politics with it, and make sure everybody understands what it is. But it's very clear to me and very clear to others who have commented on that the contractual language is that we continue to just sell power to Quebec, and there's no additional wheeling rights. Nothing has changed in that aspect. So when he says more transmission in this deal, it's fundamentally not true.
It's one of a number of issues that have been raised in this new agreement, and some of the issues that have been added to the agreement. But you get a chance now to debate it in the House of Assembly. The Premier has said they're working out the details now. They'll be talking to the various House leaders and hammering out, the format and that sort of thing. But he's hoping to bring in experts and the like. So what do you expect now out of the debate?
I just say he's hoping that he doesn't need to hope. He's the Premier. He can bring in the experts. I would also say, too, he said last week that they were hammering out the deals. That's not true. We reached out, and the NDP reached out to the government to ask for a meeting, and the meeting is not happening until today. So we have no indication whatsoever what this format is going to look like. So again, that comment last week that the details are being worked on, they weren't. The meeting is taking place today. We certainly feel like we have a good model for what this structure can look like. I think it's important that the negotiating team and Ms. Williams and other members from NL Hydro participate in the debate. We would ask, there's another layer that the Premier thought was important to add when he had a review panel. We think the panelists should be made available as well. They were promised to be made available to the public, and then that was pulled away. There's certainly been a struggle with openness and transparency with regards to this deal in this government. So we do look forward to debating this in the House of Assembly. We have a lot of questions. We still continue to not prejudge the deal, but we do, just even over the course of the week, a lot of issues has been raised about what's in this new deal. In particular, one thing that's been frustrating beyond all measure for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians is the 1969 contract and the fact that it's a fixed price. And where Quebec is able to sell our power to other entities, including its own ratepayers or its industrial ratepayers or to Americans or to Ontario for an increased price, they make more money, and Newfoundland and Labrador has the fixed price forever and ever and ever for decades. One of the fundamental things that was wrong with that deal, of course, not only was it not fair, it wasn't tied to those market prices. Again, this deal now, the new deal that the Premier has, is not tied to market prices. So if Quebec continues to sell at an increased cost and make more money on the backs of Newfoundland and Labrador's resource, Newfoundland and Labrador does not see that upside. So that's a fundamental flaw that I see in this agreement. If they can convince me during the debate that there's a reason to do that, I'll listen. But this contract looks more like 1969 every day that we continue to look at it and delve into it.
Is that enough of a concern to you that will prevent you from supporting it?
It is the number one thing that we needed to get right when we had a new contract between NL Hydro and Hydro-Quebec. You know as well as I do, for generations we've been saying it's not fair because we don't get the upside of the market value. If it's not there, I will have a lot of difficulty in supporting this deal. It was there in the 2024 MOU. And when you look at what the Premier announced, which I think was a bit of a political move to provide a 15% rebate to people on their electricity bills, why did he choose electricity bills? It's because they've gone up at an extraordinary rate faster than general inflation over the last 50 years. Now we're throwing that away. We're throwing that increase away. We're throwing that revenue away and giving it to Quebec. So again, when he says there's more value in this new deal, there's not more value. There's actually less value because we're not tying it to the increase in markets over the next number of years as if we enter into this contract. So it's a very scary proposition, and I question why we gave away something that we had that was really the fix to the 1969 contract. And if you go back and listen to the debate that we had in the House of Assembly in 2025, members of the NL Hydro team said we learned from our mistakes in 1969, and Schedule F in the old agreement, which tied it to market prices, was the solution to the problems that we made generations ago. And now we've decided to walk away from a solution that we had.
Opposition Leader John Hogan, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Your thoughts on what John Hogan has had to say, I would encourage you to give us a call, or anything else that is on your mind. Heaven knows there's lots to talk about. We'll be back right after this. And we're back. We're going to go now to Mike Tiller on line 2. Hello, Mike.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad at all. I just want to weigh in on the Churchill Falls MOU. I tried to read it. I did brief through it. There's a lot of technical information and a lot of big numbers out there, and I've read a lot of the reports from people that seem to be in the know. It all seems to point to that it's not the best deal right now for Newfoundland and Labrador. Whether that's true or not is yet to be, I guess, the official stamp put on it. I also listen to this show on a fairly regular basis. I hear all the calls. I hear the people saying, our healthcare system is in shambles, our education system is in shambles, our roads need major infrastructure work, the people in Labrador need social housing, there's a big need for mental health changes and mental health programs in this province, and that all requires money. So whether we all think that this is a good deal or a bad deal, I mean, that's all up to ourselves. I'm leaning towards bad deal. However, if we decide as a province, or if it's that it is a bad deal, and everybody's saying referendum and let's turn this down and get a better deal, maybe that is the right way to go about it. But we all have to realize as a province that if we decide that this is not what we want, and that we're going to renegotiate or we're going to wait to 2041, then we also have to realize that all the changes that we want to see made are going to have to be, delayed, I'd say, severely, because we do not have the cash influx to fix all the problems that we have. We're spread out. We're a huge landmass with very few people. And, I agree with what they say that we do need to fix all these problems. But without this deal, then that is going to certainly delay getting the fixes that we all need and that we deserve. I know Bay du Nord is being sanctioned, hopefully, in 2027. That will certainly, hopefully bring us an infusion that we need to help with some of these matters. But whether this deal goes through or whether this deal does not go through, we have all these problems. And cash, of course, is usually better management, I'm sure, in some of the departments can help. But without the influx of cash, these problems aren't going to go away.
What do you make of the federal government's involvement? Do you think that will help to push this over the finish line? It appears as though Mark Carney is very much bullish about getting this deal done.
Of course he is. I mean, it's going to look great for him. It's going to bring electricity to the rest of the country, and it's going to make him very popular in Quebec if this is a good deal for Quebec. But I'm not saying that it's not going to bring us some badly needed cash, and it's not going to help us out right now when we are, needing all this change and these fixes. So, do we sacrifice the short-term fix right now and start helping us out, or do we hold off and do we say, we're gonna take the status quo and we're gonna slowly fix the problems that we have, or are we going to take the cash infusion now and not get maybe as much later than we deserve? And in regards to Mark Carney, I think if this deal is turned down, then he's not going to be so eager to work with Newfoundland and Labrador again, because if we turn this down, it's certainly going to put egg on his face. So unless he comes back and he hears the cries that we're saying, we want a better deal, we want a fair, a more equitable deal for us, and make it, the same as Quebec with regards to the hours to kilowatt hours and what we pay for it, and maybe the escalator clause or however that works. I certainly think 50 years is crazy. I mean, 20, 25 maybe. But to lock us in again for 50 years, I mean, we've seen how much the world has changed in the last 50 years, and I can only imagine the changes coming in the next 50 years, good, bad, or indifferent. So, Mark Carney, I think, needs to hear what we're saying and maybe tweak a little bit. But, the seats that are in Quebec are going to make or break a government a lot more than the 7 seats that we have here in Newfoundland.
There could be something in that. I'm not sure, but both sides need this deal. That's clear. Both Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador need this deal. But what do you see specifically? I mean, you touched on a couple of points there, but what do you see specifically as allowing you to see this as a bad deal?
The length of the deal, certainly, 50 years is way too long to lock anything in for. I mean, nobody would lock their mortgage in for 50 years. No business would sign an agreement with a supplier for 50 years. So why would a province sign an agreement with another province for 50 years? It makes absolutely no sense. Also, why should we be paying more per kilowatt hour when it is our resource? And that's what I think needs to be hammered home to Canada and Quebec and the rest of the world that want this power. It is our resource. How much we're able to sell to the rest of the world, the rest of North America, without having to negotiate deals with Quebec. Because again, we are selling power to North or to eastern seaboard of the United States, maybe, but we still need to negotiate a price with Quebec to sell it to through those power lines. We certainly need the power. Labrador. The mining industry in Labrador is craving for the extra power. Maybe, if we decide to lock this in, we negotiate something with the federal government to get more manufacturing jobs. The ore should be maybe, I don't know, steel plant in Labrador, steel plant somewhere on this island. Maybe there's a way that we can make a better use of our resources that the feds can help us with to make this deal more profitable. But when this deal is signed, and then you have, maybe we'll do a wind farm up here, or maybe we'll do something else here that'll make the deal look better. But there's nothing concrete in this deal. It says maybe there'll be a wind farm up in an on-site wind farm in Labrador, but there's no cost estimates on none of this. There's no details in none of that. It's just, okay, maybe that's something we'll do, and it'll give you more power, and it looks good. But there's no great, there's nothing concrete about that. It's like a maybe thrown in there. So it's almost
indeed, a feasibility study has to be done, and a feasibility has yet to be done on Gull Island as well. And we've been kicking that ball around for 30 more years?
Exactly. So why are we putting all these big timelines on the length of the deal? And like you said, the stuff that's being thrown in the feasibility studies is like two sports teams make a trade, and let's say, okay, well, maybe we'll throw a player in later or cash considerations later. None of that is etched in stone. So I'm not saying that we can't use every cent that is being promised to us, because again, we have all these issues that need to be fixed, and money is the driving force to kind of got to kickstart the fix of anything. So if we decide as a province and we kick up enough pressure and we say, you know what, do not sign this deal, and it's not signed, that could very well be the best thing for us in the long run. But in the short term, we all have to realize that the issues that we're wanting fixed and that we're calling in an open line and we're being pressuring the government to fix, that will definitely delay some of these fixes, because we don't have the we don't have the funds to do it. So we have to realize that making a decision on one may cause more problems in the short term.
A fine balance. We have to reach that balance, I guess.
Correct. And that's not going to be very easy. And I think that this partisan party racket where one side makes a deal and the other side doesn't like it, and put everybody in an all-party committee and come up with the good ideas. There's got to be some good ideas on both sides, as well as there's bad ideas on both sides. Get together with the three parties, with the independents, and work together. Because just coming out and saying things because one is a Conservative, one is a Liberal, and one is an NDP, that has done us no good for the last, since we've joined Confederation, and is darn well not doing us any good now.
Mike Tiller, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Bye-bye. Your thoughts on what Mike has had to say, give us a call. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we have a few people waiting on the lines. We'll get to you just in a moment. We'll be back right after this. And we're back. We are going to go now to Jerry. You're on the air. Hi, Jerry.
Yes, good morning. My God, you're looking good today. How do you do it?
It's the sunshine by.
I know. Listen, on the MOU, the only thing I can't wrap my head around is we are basically a wholesaler, and Quebec is a retailer. And just on a microeconomics level, in the new agreement, we are tying any raises to a CPI. Is that correct?
You are assuming that I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay. Anyway, well, the Premier said that the escalation clause has been taken out, and now we're going to do any raises, will be based on the CPI.
Yeah.
Well, the last 5 years, the CPI has gone up 20%, while the overall cost of electricity in Newfoundland has gone up 43% over 5 years. So if we're going to base any escalations over the next 50 years on the CPI versus the actual cost of electricity, we are going to lose a lot of money if the trend continues over the last 5 years. So I think putting that CPI clause in there is not good for Newfoundland in any way, shape, or form.
So would a 2% escalator have been better in your opinion?
Well, I think it should have been based on the actual average price of electricity in the country or in Ontario or overall. For example, if Quebec is selling the power to whoever for 18 cents a kilowatt hour, we should be charging 9. If Quebec is selling for 20 cents a kilowatt hour, we should be charging 10. So we're a wholesaler to them. So basically, if we're 50-50, if we're producing the electricity and they're selling it, I think we should be 50-50. We should be getting at least 50%. So I think it should be based on whatever Quebec is selling it for. We should get half. That makes sense to me. I mean, if you're a wholesaler and you're producing widgets and each widget costs you 50 cents and you're selling it to Walmart for $1, well, then Walmart they're going to turn around and sell it for the wholesale price of $2, for example. So if Walmart are going to raise their price to $3 and $4 down the road, why would you still sell Walmart your widget for 50 cents or 60 cents? You know what I'm saying? It's just that if we're 50-50, if Newfoundland wants to get at least half or the most out of its own resource, it should be tied to the actual price that Quebec is selling it for.
So what do you suppose is the impediment there, why we can't reach that kind of an agreement?
Well, any agreement starts off on its most basic form. And to me, the basic form is we are producing the power, we will sell it to you. If you're going to sell it for 20 cents, we want 10 cents from you. That's the basic of any agreement with any product out there, whether you're talking widgets, whether you're talking bricks, whether you're talking, skidoos, snowmobiles, clothing, whatever. That's just the basis of it. The wholesaler, the manufacturer wants his price, he gives it to the wholesaler. The wholesaler wants his price, he gives it to the manufacturer. But for us to make pittance, while in 10, 20, 30 years, if the price still goes up the way it's going up over the last 5, Quebec will be selling that for way more than we're getting for it, way more. The actual proportion will be, we won't be making 50%, we'll be making probably 10%, 15%, in my estimation.
Of course, in these kinds of negotiations, there's a back and forth and a give and take and all that sort of thing. The previous MOU had some assurances that Quebec would take the risk, if you will. They'll be building the infrastructure. Where are we with that in this new agreement?
Well, the infrastructure is already there for Churchill Falls. Now, this new agreement includes a whole bunch of what ifs. What if we can do wind farms? What if we can plug the wind farms into the grid? What if? But to me, it should be basic. We're talking Churchill Falls. The infrastructure is already there. Quebec has the power lines. If they want to create new power lines, well, that's up to them. But we have the product. We should sell it for a wholesale price. And whatever that wholesale price is based on the market conditions, that's what we should get for it. I.e., if the market conditions, if Quebec is selling it to one sector for 18 cents kilowatt hour, we're charging them 9. If the price goes up to 26 cents in 3 years, we should be charging them 13. That should be the escalator clause, not CPI. CPI doesn't come close to what the actual rates have gone up over the last 5 years. I haven't gone back to 10 years or 15 or 20, but I think it would be interesting to see what the CPI was over 25, over 50 years versus the actual rate hikes for electricity.
So should this deal be rejected based on that?
Well, based on, if you can figure out what the CPI based on past would be over the next 50 years, and then what the electricity rates would be over the next 50 years based on the last 5, 10, 50 years, basically we should get 50% of, and that's, so right now, just based on the CPI alone, I'm not happy with it. No way. Because over 10, 15, 20 years, we will be getting much, much less than what Quebec is making off it. And the whole thing about this was everybody was saying the last election, we should be getting the bulk of the profits from this. And to me, the bulk of the profits means 51%. So if we're going to get 51%, we got to be a wholesaler, and we just got to charge the going rate for electricity, what they're making off it. That's, to me, that's the simplest start of any MOU, of any agreement. And that's what every other commodity does in the world, whether you're selling bricks or sand or basketballs. They set a price. And if the price goes up due to inflation, well, both sides will increase their prices. I mean, right now with the tariffs, if the U.S. is importing aluminum cans, we'll say, and they were paying 10 cents a can, well, now with the tariffs, now they're going to be paying a lot more. They'll be paying, probably 50% more. They're going to mark it up on their end to their customers. So we should be able to do the same thing. If the price goes up, we should mark it on and get that extra money from Quebec Hydro. Quebec's getting it on their end, so the actual clause should include something based on the actual price that they're selling.
Jerry, I appreciate your call this morning. We'll see what others have to say.
All right, Madar, you have a lovely day.
You
Thanks.
too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
We're going to go now to Daryl. You're on the air.
Well, hi, Linda. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful good. I can't complain. It's all good. Pertaining to all your callers before me, I agree with all of them, and that sums it up right there. But what I want to talk about today is interprovincial trade, which in Canada alone is about $200 billion worth in interprovincial trade, and I don't know why we're going at a snail pace. We're going too slow, because look what happened there recently. Negotiations broke down with the trade deal, which that didn't surprise me at all. And the best thing to do is focus on the interprovincial trade, open her up totally right across this country, and that'd be enough money. $200 billion would keep Canada strong, and I wouldn't the time they're wasting going down and trying to negotiate with the Americans, with the politicians, is a waste of time. Because if you make a deal, tomorrow they'll turn around and change, say, well, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. So walk away from it. Look after our people in this country, the businesses, whatever. Help them get over the hump, and wait till after 2 years and then go back to the table, because look what you're dealing with. It's a total waste of time and productivity going back and forth. And when you could focus on interprovincial, focus within our country, focus doing deals with other countries, and that's what needs to be done.
Arguably, interprovincial trade is not going to make up the trade deficit that is the enormous trading partner that the United States is with Canada. So a solution needs to be found there, but we're divesting away from that now. And as you rightly pointed out, the whole discussion surrounding interprovincial trade really dominated discussion, didn't it? 3-4 years ago, I lose track of the time, but where are we now with, trying to eliminate some of those, in some cases, rather silly interprovincial barriers?
Yes, and you're right. And a lot of them are silly, because I know some companies are here in Canada and they get export to the U.S., but they can't do no business with all the provinces here in Canada. And there's a lot of silly barriers. It won't, like $200 billion, that's a good start. We got to focus on that. But it's like when you're trying to deal with the Americans now with this trade deal, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound. It's not going to cure the problem. And we're seeing it here now, and it's happening. And they keep adding amenities to the deal, and it keeps going on and on and on. So it's a waste of time. It's just well put that on pause till after the next election down in the States. Because, yes, we do need them as a good trading partner, but the way things are now, it's a total waste of time. Just focus on interprovincial, get this all put it full steam ahead. We're going too slow with this. That's a start, and then we could trade with other countries around the world, because we got all the resources. From hydro, natural gas. I mean, there's enough natural gas in Labrador alone to supply North America. And you look at now, okay, Tony Wakeham and Lloyd Parrott are gone over to Norway for 3 or 4 days. Okay, we'll learn from them, because Norway got that much money in their wealth, in the wealth pot, or whatever you want to call it. It works out that it's $250,000 per person. So they got enough money to look after the people, because they are capitalizing on their resources. And this is where we got to get it right here in Canada, because all I've seen here is sellouts. To come to agreements, as the other callers reiterated, is not a good deal. We got the resources, and yet we're selling ourselves out, and it don't make no sense what we're doing at all. The only thing I can see is when politicians get out of politics, then they get appointed to different entities, or whatever the case may be. So we got to stop selling ourselves out. We got to look at what's best for the province, because if we capitalize on our resources, we should be money in the bank. You shouldn't have to be worrying about your health care and everything else, because there should be enough money there to do things. But yet everything's all sold out. Don't matter what resource we got. It's just always blunders with it since Confederation. I mean, I think before we went in Confederation, the Newfoundland Labrador government had, $34 million in the bank. Now we're billions in debt. So, I mean, we got to start getting this right, and everybody got to work together as a team, like all political parties, rather than just political mongering, PC, Liberal, NDP, Independents, whatever. Work together, and when we work together, when we're united, we prosper. Divided, we fall. And this is what we got to start doing, and we got to start getting things right, because, I mean, if we don't, like this hydro deal, we don't get this right, once the deal is done, and I don't agree with 50 years. I think that's ludicrous. Maybe 15, 20 years, or look at things every 5 years to analyze, see what's happening with the markets. But we got to get this right, and we all got to work together as a province, as a country, and unite, and then we'll be better off.
Daryl, appreciate your call. Thank you.
Great. And again, Linda, thank you very much for your time, and all the best to you and staff at VOCM and your listening audience. Have a great finish to your day.
You too. Bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we're back. We're going to go now to George. You're on the air. Hi, George.
Hello, Linda. This is I'm phoning looking for a little help from the public.
Sure.
My daughter is visiting me from here in Mount Pearl from Cornerbrook, and she lost her keys by the duck pond in Bowering Park on Saturday around 5 p.m. It's her only set of keys, and she needs to get back to work in Cornerbrook tomorrow. To get a replacement set of keys made by Kia will take up to 48 hours and cost like $600. So I'm just wondering if anybody ever found those keys down there, could they please contact me?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I was going to ask you, it didn't go in the water, though, did it?
It's a possibility, I suppose.
Oh, wow. Have you tried the city?
But yes, we tried. I tried the RNC, put it in a report with the commissioners down at the park, and we tried everything we could think of. So I figured I'd phone VOCM because I know people recover things quite often by phoning into your show.
Absolutely. So are you willing to give your number out over the air, or does Dave have it?
I'll give it out over the air, and just the set of keys itself is like a purple key fab on it, a red key, and there's a little dartboard on it, which is distinctive, right? And I'm willing to give a reward for anybody who phone in and return the keys if they found them. It's my phone number is 746-2881.
And she really needs those back so she can get back to work.
That's right. She's got to be back. She works for healthcare out in Cornwall, and she needs to get back. And we're in a real predicament here.
All right. So if anyone has picked up a set of Kia car keys in Bowering Park, perhaps somewhere in and around the duck pond, they have a purple tag with a dartboard on it. So pretty distinctive, as you say. If anyone has seen those keys or picked them up, they can give you a call, 746-2881.
That's correct, and it wasn't a big distance. You know where the parking lot is on the duck pond side there. She only walked from the parking lot over to the duck pond, like a 3-minute walk, and just around the duck pond right there. So it was no big distance, right? So it was in that area somewhere, and there was 3 of them, and they went back looking all over the place, and they would have found them if. But I assume somebody picked them up, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, hopefully she gets them back. If she does get them back before the end of this show, will you call us and update us?
I will. And my number again is 746-2881. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Ooh, I lost my voice. Got a frog in my throat. We're going to go now to Lorraine. You're on the air. Hi, Lorraine. Hello, Lorraine.
Yes.
How can I help you?
Yes, honey. You know my name, Lorraine. Am I on air now?
You are on the air.
Yes. I've got a few complaints to make. I'm here without a worker since last Tuesday. And I'm trying to do my housework with a walker and using an action machine, going around the house, even I'm trying to cook. I got to take a shower without nobody here. I got a bad back, and I had knee surgery, and I had no call from my social worker as of yet, so I said, now I get on open line, and I am here with cancer. So I got to get up in the mornings and make up my bed. I don't mind doing that. But hey, there's got to be something done. So she said she was going to call me, but she didn't call me. I left messages on top of message, and and I did tell her that if I don't hear from no one by today, that was just Friday, I'll get on open line. So she called me. So she said she was going to try something Monday. Monday's here. It's 10 o'clock and no worker.
So
I leave my door.
You're talking about a home care worker?
Yes, honey.
And you haven't. So your home care worker didn't show up for how long?
I haven't got a home care worker. That's just it.
Oh, I see. You haven't had one yet.
Since Tuesday.
Okay.
Last Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had a bit of money on me, I had to get takeout. and I'm a diabetic. I don't want takeout foods. It's not very nice for diabetics to eat. Not only me, everyone else. So, they got to listen to me on open line, I'm sure. I never got on open line for the social worker. Now, they're going to force me to go into a home. My doctor wants me to go into a home, and I just might put that in consideration. 68 years old.
So, are you getting any satisfaction and answers as to why you don't have a home care worker right now?
Well, I had one last week. I can't give no name. I don't know. But she left. And they called me and said she wasn't coming back. And I said, don't why? Now, I'm sitting here trying to eat my breakfast since 8:30 this morning. And I got to try to get a shower. And everything else is happening to me, too. So,
and
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Have you tried your MHA?
Didn't consider that.
You should give your member a call.
Pardon? Pardon me?
You should give your member a call.
Oh, well, we'll do that now after I talk to you.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, I'm here with bad lungs, cancer of the lung, and I'm using an oxygen tank. I got to repeat myself, and I'm trying to do a housework. There's a girl in another building here that lives over here. She tries to come over to help me. That's not called for. I pay his contribution money every month. Now.
And do you have any family that can help you out in the interim?
I got family, but no, thank you. I had my nephew come out to help me with a bit of housework, 33 years old, but he's not allowed back in my building. Anyway, my sister used to come out, my nephew's son, mother. She came out, she caused trouble for me. Therefore, I got no family members.
Well, Lorraine, keep trying with your agency, and I would suggest also calling your MHA. We're up to news time there now. We'll have to leave it there, but let us know how you make out.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye-bye. And we are up to news time. This is VOCM Open Line. The numbers to call coming right up. We hope to hear from you. And we're back on VOCM Open Line. Linda Swain in for Brian Callahan, who is off today. And there are plenty of people, of course, and we've heard from some of them on the show so far, who have been probing into this new deal on the Churchill Falls Agreement. And among them are Des Sullivan of Uncle Gnarly, and he outlines quite a few concerns that he has. Also expressing some concerns about this is none other than David Vardy of the 2041 group, and he joins us now. Hello, David.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. So what are among your key concerns here?
I'd like to just start off by congratulating VOCM for providing a platform to discuss this very important public policy issue, and it's good to talk to you again after a long time. So, yes, the first thing I want to say is that this MOU, I'm going to call it MOU 2, you know what it does? It turns off the light at the end of the tunnel, because 2041 was the light at the end of the tunnel. If we waited to 2041, we're going to be able to change this deal. One of the things that this deal does, the MOU 2, is it has an Annex C, and an Annex C basically ties the hands of the government of Newfoundland so that after the definitive agreements have been signed, and that's scheduled for the end of December 2026, once those definitive agreements are signed, the government can't make any changes. They can't make changes in tax rates. They can't make changes in the statutory lease of 1961, which is the governing legislation on this. And so we're stuck beyond 2041. We're stuck until 2077. We can't make any changes. So that's a big problem, because what this agreement does is deny us access to full market value. It denies us access to full market value of a resource that's worth a lot of money and could generate between $4 and $5 billion a year. Linda, I put out a blog post this morning in Uncle Gnarly, and your listeners could see more detail on what I'm going to say now in this blog post, because this is my analysis, public analysis of summary and critique of the MOU2, which I think would be beneficial to your readers, because I think this is extremely important. What we've got here are conditions that are unacceptable to the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. We saw a very courageous Prime Minister yesterday tell the President of the United States that he was going to walk away from the free trade agreement. We need a courageous Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador who will walk away from this agreement with Premier Christine Frechette of Quebec, because it doesn't serve our interest. It denies us access to the power that we need. It denies us access to the value of the power. And that's the key issue for me, is the value of the power. This power is extremely valuable. It delivers a pittance in terms of the value of the resource. It was done very extremely quickly after the IRC report. The IRC report put out some very important numbers. Table 1 of the IRC report gives you a summary of where the money is, how much money is flowing into the Treasury of Newfoundland and Labrador from each of these projects. And the Upper Churchill is by far the largest source of revenue into the province. The other projects are relatively minor scale in relationship to the Upper Churchill. That's where the money is. That's why I've always said this is the jewel in the crown. So we need now to have another Table 1, similar to what the IRC produced with regard to MOU2. We have an analysis of MOU1. We need an analysis of MOU2. That should be done before a referendum. It should be done publicly. It should be done by a Supreme Court judge, independently calling witnesses before it, independent witnesses, as well as witnesses from Hydro. That needs to be done in a public forum. It needs to be done quickly, and it's extremely important that that be done before there should be a referendum. But this deal that we now have is really not up to standard. It really doesn't satisfy the major criterion, the major litmus test, the major benchmark.
Yeah, well, and let me ask you about that, because you said it denies access to full market value and it denies us access to power that we need. How so?
Well, because essentially what it does is it limits us to the amount of power that was in the first agreement. Okay, the MOU1 is from the Upper Churchill. In terms of the power, the power from the Lower Churchill is still capped at the same amount that we're going to get out of the MOU agreement. And if the Gull Island project doesn't go ahead, if it doesn't go ahead, then what's going to happen is we're going to be cut back. So we only get an additional 300. We were going to get 1,660 megawatts under MOU1, but if the Gull Island project doesn't go ahead, that'll be cut back. So we only get an additional 300 megawatts on top of the 525 that we already have. So the other thing is the thing about it is that we're committed to this agreement, and there's no index to the marketplace. One of your callers this morning gave a beautiful example of how over the last 5 years the price of electricity has gone up by over 20%, whereas the consumer index has gone up. I don't know, maybe it was more than that, but there was twice the increase in the energy prices. The electricity prices was twice the increase in the consumer price index. What we've got in here in this agreement is the consumer price index, so we're not indexed to the market for electrical power. That was the biggest problem with the 1969 contract. The MOU1 failed to address that problem. This one does so as well. Doesn't give us periodic adjustments based upon electricity prices, and it locks us into a 51-year agreement. And then on top of that, you have this rider that's thrown in there that has not been publicly discussed. I've seen very, very little discussion of this Annex C, which essentially says we can't do anything to increase our water rentals or our royalties until 2077. That locks us in, so we're stuck with the same amount of revenue. The amount of revenue we're getting currently from the Upper Churchill is extremely small. We get about $10 million in rentals and royalties. we get another $10 million in preferred dividends. We haven't even got the common dividends out of this project since 2008. It's not delivering any cash, and so it's not going to deliver any cash in the future to us unless we get those clauses changed. We can't. So this agreement doesn't provide us with access to the market value, which is enormous. It's equal to the deficit, the cash deficit the province has this year. So if we had access to the full amount of the resources, the revenues that this would produce, it would wipe out our cash deficit. Now, there are impediments to that. The biggest impediment right now is the 1969 contract, which locks us in and prevents us from increasing the price and increasing the revenue from the project. This agreement basically tells us that there won't be a 1969 contract. There'll be something even worse, because it's very explicit that we can't increase our rates. We can't change any of the conditions associated with the water rights. So we're locked in until 2077 for another 51 years. So those are some of the big problems with regard to the Upper Churchill, the Gull Island project. It cedes the management control, turns over management control of Gull Island to Hydro-Quebec. It gives them cost of service pricing, so that means that we don't get the benefit of an upside, the market prices going up in the future. And as I mentioned, the term of the contract is unusually long, is unprecedented. To enter into a 51-year contract today is completely irrational. We need to have a renewal. We need to have exit ramps. The other thing is that we need, is extremely important, is access to transmission rights through Quebec. So for any amount of power that we may choose to export, this doesn't provide that. It provides for us to piggyback on top of existing contracts that have already been negotiated by Hydro-Quebec with New York, in the state of New York, and in the state of Massachusetts. It also gives us a formula whereby we can sell power to Hydro-Quebec at a specific formula. But that's a very limited amount of power. That is, what we need is to have an indexed power so we can sell all the power that we want to sell to export markets at an indexed price, indexed to competitive market prices. We're not getting any index to competitive market prices. The only way we're going to get real value for our power is if we can sell to the final customer, as opposed to having to deal with a middle person, which is Hydro-Quebec. And as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't exist to deliver any more capacity. The existing agreement, the MOU-1 gave us 1,630 megawatts from the Upper Churchill. That remains the same, but if the Gull Island project doesn't go ahead, then that is capped, and so we only get an additional 300. And so the pricing arrangements are based upon, for Gull Island and for the wind and for the upgrades are all based on cost of service, so we don't get any upside on that. So the only little bit of upside we get would be on the Upper Churchill, but even that is extremely limited. So
what about the risks that Quebec was willing to take, or was touted as being willing to take in MOU-1, as you put it, for building of Gull Island and expansion of Churchill Falls? We're no longer expanding Churchill Falls now. We're simply upgrading the facilities that are there. And Gull Island is now going to a feasibility study. So what about the risks that Quebec was willing to take? Because we were stung, of course, by Muskrat Falls having to go that alone.
Right, exactly. Now, they're going to take 40% of the risk on Gull Island. They're going to take 40% of the risk on Gull Island. We're going to take 60% of the risk because we're going to be the 60% equity participant in this deal. And so that it puts us right on the hook in terms of financial exposure. Now, the government of Canada comes along. That helps this. That reduces the risk. There's no question about that. Bringing the government of Canada into this picture makes a difference in this. But the problem remains that with the pricing formula, we're not going to get market return because all of this is based upon the cost, the actual cost. So Hydro-Quebec gets cost. We don't get the profit. We don't get the profit that comes from the market upside. When it comes to the upgrades that you just mentioned, the upgrades are going to be financed basically basically under the framework of the existing Churchill Falls company. CFL is going to be done, except the shareholder, the equity participation is going to be the same. It's going to be basically based on 2/3, 1/3. So we would continue to absorb 2/3 of the risk, and we end up with a very small share of the extra capacity that comes out of this. Hydro-Quebec gets most of the benefit of this. Hydro-Quebec gets the benefit of the upgrades. Hydro-Quebec gets the benefit of Gull Island, the extra power from Gull Island. We end up with, we still become 60% shareholders with 60% of the risk in Gull Island. We have 2/3 of the shareholding in the Upper Churchill, and we end up with 2/3 of the risk. So those problems continue to remain. But at the end of the day, it comes down to whether we are the principal beneficiary. And one of your callers was raising the question, well, what is the right share for the government of Newfoundland to be getting? And some people are out there saying what is fair is that we get 50-50. And I totally and absolutely disagree with that. I totally absolutely disagree that 50-50, even Steven, is not fair, because we own 2/3 of the Upper Churchill plant, which is where the value comes from, and we own 100% of the value of the water rights. So we deserve, and my group has been saying is we need 75%. So that's the benchmark. Our benchmark should be 75%. If we don't get 75%, then we should walk away from the deal. This doesn't give us anything close to 75%. But you know something? We need to have independent numbers, because I don't want the public of Newfoundland and Labrador relying on my numbers. I don't want the public of Newfoundland and Labrador relying on Hydro's numbers. I want the public of Newfoundland and Labrador to get numbers that have been developed through a process, a fair and equitable process, a process chaired by a judge of the Supreme Court, a Supreme Court judge, whether an active judge or a retired judge. That judge should ensure that there's expert evidence provided. So at the end of the day, we will know whether we are the principal beneficiary, because we need the numbers. We need to know whether we achieve that 75% benchmark. And you know something, we're not going to achieve that 75% benchmark if we give away our legislative right to be able to set the royalty rate and the water rentals. This is all about sovereignty. We are a province within Canada, and people are telling us that because of the geography, we should be locked into, we should accept being a second-class Canadian, and we should accept the fact that we can't sell our power through Quebec because of the geography. Well, I totally disagree with that. I think that we should be mounting a national campaign across Canada, the way Brian Peckford did with the Atlantic Accord, because he said that we have to have access to royalty revenues as if the same as Alberta, because the resources in Alberta were under the land, in Newfoundland they were under the sea, and what Brian Peckford got out of that was an agreement from the government of Canada that we would be the principal beneficiary of our offshore resources. We now need to be able to say that we must become the principal beneficiary of our hydroelectric resources, and we can't do that unless we can sell our power to the customer. And I'm not just talking about a block of power. I'm not interested in 200 megawatt block or a 300 megawatt block. I'm talking about the whole 5,428 megawatts. We should be free to be able to sell that wherever we want, and that's extremely important. This agreement denies us this, so I think what we need is to have an independent inquiry that puts out this information, because what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Premier Wakeham said that John Hogan's MOU 1 needed to be reviewed by an independent review, and so same thing with Wakeham's MOU 2. That needs to be subject to a review. This needs to be even more transparent, because to be quite honest with you, the independent review process was not fully transparent. With 350 submissions, we don't know the identity of who made those submissions. We should know this is a public resource. This needs to be a more transparent inquiry. and then there should be a referendum. I think not to have a referendum is a big error. Whichever government negotiates this agreement is going to have to wear it, and they're going to have to defend it in the eyes of future generations who've been looking for this for a long time. This is the piggy bank that for our grandchildren, our children, future generations, that we must deliver to them. And so I think that what the Premier of Newfoundland should do is she should show the same courage that the Prime Minister of Canada showed yesterday when he stood up to the biggest bully on the planet, namely the President of the United States. We can't be bullied. We have to demonstrate that we can't be bullied by the geography. We're not going to be bullied by geography. We're a sovereign country. We can exercise our own rights, and we will stand up for those rights. We are a province of Canada. We're no longer a part of the British Common. We're no longer part of a commission of government. We're an independent province of Canada. We agreed to have equal legislative power. That means that we have the power to sell our power directly to anybody in North America, and that's what every other jurisdiction, every state of the Union, every province in Canada can sell their power.
David, we're overdue for a break, I'm afraid, but and we could talk about this at length, as you already know, but if anyone wants to examine some of your findings, they can check out your guest appearance on Uncle Gnarly's blog. I really appreciate your time this morning, David. Thank you.
Thank you very much this morning.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we're back. Lots to absorb, of course, with Churchill Falls. It's been a week now since we've started to pick that new agreement apart and delve into it. So if you have any thoughts, you're welcome to give us a call. And, of course, the provincial government is going to be convening a session of the House of Assembly to debate this specifically. Now there are calls in Ottawa for Prime Minister Mark Carney to do the same when it comes to his decision to walk away from trade talks with the United States and the imposition of 50% tariffs on a wide range of, I think, $28 billion worth of Canadian goods, and the decision to inflict, if you will, reciprocal tariffs on U.S. imports. So lots to take to ruminate on, I suppose. If you want to talk about any of that, you're welcome to do so. We're going to go now to Angela. You're on the air. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I don't want to keep you long this morning. I just want to discuss something. I'm having some access to government services issues. They're ongoing. I mean, it's been quite a lengthy time. I won't get into it. I tend to kind of give up on it and then move on and, try again. But I've been trying to reach my MHA for 3 weeks now. Prior to that, it's been years trying to get access to justice services and whatnot. But I think the best place for me to go is my MHA. I'm just, wondering if I could reach out to him here online and ask him to get back to me.
Absolutely. How have you done so prior to this? Have you been calling the office, or? I
have. I've been calling the office. Now, he has an assistant, obviously. He's not available. And he's left me a couple of messages, but when I call him back, I never get him. He's left me 2 messages recently, but perhaps he's on annual leave. Maybe it's a long one. I know it's the summer months, but I just need to be able to access stuff. And additionally, I'm trying to call the Minister of Justice's office. I'm calling the publicly listed numbers, 729-2869 and the 5702. And sometimes there's an option to leave a message, but it's no one ever gets back to me. So I'm looking to speak to Jamie Korab, the MHA for my area, to help me attach to these services and to make sure that this is fluid and there's follow through and I can actually get what I need. So if I could reach out to him here and let him know that, if you're away and you come back, this is really urgent and, involve, again, access to justice, access to government services, and coercive violence. It's really important, and I need to speak to him. And
so you say he did get back to you, but you weren't available at that particular moment. So you're playing a bit of phone tag.
Well, his assistant called me back, and I asked him, I said, given I'm having years trying to justify and get these services, maybe just schedule an appointment. I'll accommodate whatever you can, and that appointment's never scheduled. So the important thing is that, it needs to be done in person. And I understand he's busy. Maybe he needs to send his assistant to gather the information and do some work and get back to me. All that stuff, legalities are important, but it shouldn't take this long to get in contact with somebody. And again, it's not just Mr. Korab, it's government services. I don't know if anyone out there is having trouble reaching people, but I've never needed to in the past, but it is important.
All right, well, let us know if you do finally get that direct contact.
Yes, and I think his assistant is Jonathan. So if you're listening to Jonathan, Angela is requesting a meeting scheduled, and just let me know what time it is.
All right, Angela, I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Bye-bye. We're up against another break now because we went a bit long with David Vardy, but he had a lot of important things to say, of course. We're going to take another break now, and when we come back, we're going to speak with Susan, and Craig is waiting in the lines. Today's VOCM question of the day: do you support Ottawa's decision to meet U.S. tariffs dollar for dollar, even if it means increasing costs and reducing choice for Canadians? Overwhelming 92% of the people who have responded to that this morning say yes, we have to stand up to the United States on this particular issue. If you have any further thoughts on that, you're welcome to give us a call. We're going to go now to Susan. You're on the air. Hi, Susan.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very warm.
It was warm last night, wasn't it?
Unbearable. But it's the second summer, so snow will be here before we know it.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be complaining about the other stuff yet.
Exactly.
So what's on your mind?
I'm calling in to talk about some issues that I think the public should be made aware of with Newfoundland and Labrador housing.
Okay.
I'm 53. I'm a registered nurse, but I'm not practicing presently. I have a 19-year-old daughter. I just came out of a lease, and as everyone else, having difficulty finding an apartment. So my mother is in the seniors complex with housing, and come stay until you find a place. And over the past 4 months, she's gotten 3 unoccupied, not allowed to be there, me, or they're going to evict her at 83 years old. And as every mother, they don't want their child on the street or in a shelter. So I have been staying with her, and today I'm told to go on the street. And some of the housing officers, some of the young housing officers that have come to speak to my mom, they have new social housing down around the Janeway and up behind the Price Club, Galway. And this is the disturbing part. One housing officer in particular that I've spoken to last year and this year has come into my mother's building this past week, and the elevator is not working. So occupants have been offered this social housing up by Galway as an alternative, or for a few months until the elevator is fixed. Emergency social housing, which apparently I don't qualify for. And I have told housing over and over and over again, I cannot go into a shelter, and I will be perfectly honest and transparent. I had an addiction in 2011, and I will not go near any kind of situation that will put me at risk. Housing has known this, and it's an easy situation to fix. Offer me the social housing until I find an apartment, and everyone's happy.
But do you qualify? I mean, are there?
Oh, I do, but this is the difficult part that I'm having. The other people in this building have not filled out an application for this social housing, and it's a 4 to 6 year wait period. But they have been offered to go this week. No applications, no waiting. Would you like to go? And with my medical conditions and not wanting to go near a shelter, I think it's just completely discriminatory that my 83-year-old mother may be on the street as a result of a hearing today for letting me stay with her, and housing could have all along we'll offer you some housing for a couple of months. Find your apartment. Everyone's happy. Instead, my mother's waiting on the results of a hearing. No mediation. Immediate possession of her unit. And I have to get off the premises or I will be arrested.
So you're not on the lease,
child.
in other words. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So was this a temporary situation? Have you been there for a while?
I have been here since about the end of March. And I have seen probably visually maybe 30 apartments and gone through the apartments with the landlords. But I have not found the correct place. I want to be close to my mom. And my mom was aware taking me in was putting her at risk of her being evicted. But, I don't understand. 3 of these people have provided me with statements. Last Thursday, there's social housing in Galway. It's beautiful. Let us know within 3 hours if you want to go. I also qualify for the Canada Federal Housing Benefit, which I had in my previous 1-year lease. But in order for that to kick in, I have to find a new apartment. So now, not only am I only getting $400 a month, it's just so difficult to understand.
And what happened with your previous apartment? You say you came out of a lease?
It was only a 1-year lease.
I see. And Susan, have you spoken? I know we repeat this line frequently on VOCM Open Line, but have you spoken with your MHA about this?
I left a message yesterday because I didn't want to call until I had the statements of people who have been offered this housing. Call us back in 4 hours or we'll move on to somebody else.
And is there a way in which your mother could have taken you in, on the up and up and gotten you on the lease?
She could have, but housing would not let her do that. It's a small apartment. She needs her space. She is a very strong, active 83-year-old woman. I need my space. But it's just, it's one housing officer in particular just running the show, telling me, get out, your mother might be out on the bus stop tonight. And here I have 3 statements where she offered social housing behind Galway. And these are issues for me. I cannot and I will not put my sobriety after 15 years with needles and things. I will not do it.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
That is very important to me.
Yeah. Susan, you've raised it publicly now. You've reached out to your MHA. Will you let us know where you get with this, with the hearing today and any progress you might make?
Yes, I will, definitely.
Okay. Appreciate your call this morning. Thank you and good luck.
You too. Thanks, Linda.
All right. Bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have a couple lines now open, and now is your opportunity to give us a call. And we're back. We're going to go now to Craig. You're on the air. Hi, Craig.
Hello, Linda. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little bit shocked, You call government and then they'd be threatened to put your mother out on the corner. That's craziness.
Yeah, I guess we'll see where all that goes. There's a hearing today and the like, so hopefully she'll give us an update.
Yes. I was thinking about gouging and how we're supposed to have, I guess, a Consumer Protection Act about businesses gouging our customers and stuff like that. So over the weekend, I went and asked DI, what do we pay here in Newfoundland for our power? and what is the cost of that power generation, and what benefits are we getting with this rebate? And so what the numbers came out to be, basically, if we're going to use 2,000 kilowatts at 16.5 cents a kilowatt, we're going to be charged $330 a month for our bill. At 15% savings will give us $49.50. The cost to generate that power at 2 cents is actually less than 1.6, I heard over the weekend, is $40. So the difference between $40 and $330 is a 725% increase on the power that the government of Newfoundland and Labrador are charging its customers, its citizens. So we are paying way too much for our power when they're generating, after us spending almost $20 billion, and now we're still paying outrageous fees for our power consumption. If Quebec wants our power, they should be paying the $600 million that it costs to power Newfoundland and Labrador. So if they're giving us $1 billion a year, $600 million could be going to give every Newfoundland and Labrador free power. And then we got $400 million left over. We can actually probably do something with the health system then, maybe improve it a little bit, you know. So gouging, is the government of Newfoundland gouging Newfoundlanders? And the other question I was kind of asking is, what's Power NL doing? I mean, are we giving them, that private company, a discount on the power also? Because I believe that almost, 80% of the consumers of power in Newfoundland are with Power NL?
Power NL, you mean Newfoundland Power?
No, Newfoundland Power is the government company. Power NL is the private company, is it not?
No, Newfoundland Power is a private entity.
Okay, Newfoundland Power, yeah. Okay, it's a private entity. So, I mean, what are they saying? I mean, there's no talks about that company with all of this power deal discussion.
Well, the negotiations apparently will have to take place between the provincial government and Newfoundland Power and NL Hydro, which is what I think you might be referencing in terms of the government entity, to ensure that consumers get that 15% discount that you talked about right off the top.
Yes, and with that 15% discount, that's sitting in account, some kind of bank account or whatever, you know, for a month before it's being paid, we'll say. We're not actually paying, so all the interest that's being made on that little portion at $49.50 that you would save on 2,000 kilowatts. Now, the average consumer in Newfoundland only uses about 1,400 kilowatts. So most of the people in Newfoundland don't even reach that upper limit of 2,000 kilowatts.
Yeah,
so
but
we're
that's
not
the
really
cutoff.
getting much from
That's
it.
the cutoff.
Yeah, I know, that's
the
cutoff, yeah. And most people don't even reach that high. And again, we look at all the seniors that are in seniors' homes, all the students, all the kids, all the people that are living with their family members. None of them get a discount. None of them get any benefit from this deal, unless they're going to be working on the actual project.
They'll all get the power discount. They'll all get the 15% off plus taxes.
No, only if you pay a bill. If you pay a bill, you'll get a discount. If you have no power bill, you don't get a discount. There's only about
I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, we're talking
units.
about the power bill. That's the discount on the power bill, yeah.
Yeah, so not every Newfoundlander is going to get benefit from it. If you don't have a power bill to pay, you get nothing. So what's that going to do for us? We're not getting cheaper power. I mean, we don't get any rebate on our power. Like me, individual, I'm living at home with my mom, right? So we'll just say I'm a caretaker. I'm taking care of somebody in my home. I don't get any benefit. All the seniors in Newfoundland that are in seniors' home residence, they don't pay a power bill, so they don't get any benefit from it. All the students, right? So we're talking over 50% of the population will not get any benefit from this.
Okay. Well, you know, if a senior is in a home and the home is paying the electricity, then theoretically there's a savings there. Whether that gets passed down, I can't tell you. That's up to an individual home. But I think I hear what you're saying, Craig.
There's lots of questions, yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's lots of questions. So, I mean, if Newfoundlanders and Labradorians are going to benefit from this deal, each person needs to get something. Now, up in Alberta, they give oil revenues to their citizens in Alberta. The last I heard was like $500 the all got last year, maybe. So what does Newfoundland get in any of its royalties? We get nothing, not one penny. And look at and listen to the politicians talk about the wealth that we have in Newfoundland and Labrador. So if we don't start sharing that wealth with the people of Newfoundland and Labrador, then as a Dominion, we should take back Newfoundland and Labrador and have our own nation so that we can benefit the people like we do in Norway, like we do in Finland, like we do in Qatar, these countries that benefit their populations. We're not benefiting from this deal at all. Although we need the power for developing Newfoundland, it's a big plus to have. But we cannot give it away with this deal or any other deal that doesn't give each and every natural-born citizen in Newfoundland something.
All right, Craig, you've put a lot out there to digest. We'll see what others have to say about it. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. Bye-bye. We're going to go now to Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda. Linda, excuse my voice because I got a bit of a cold. I had a call there not long ago, and it's a scam. But I just want to let the people know. Probably some people already heard it. They already probably got a call from them. I got a call from a Mark Ashley, and he's going to give me $250 on my Canada pension. And I'm supposed to get that on the 27th. So he kept on talking to me and asked me a couple of questions. Now, I'm very careful. Asked me a couple of questions and that. So then the big one was, so where do I send this money? Well, I said, if it's going on my Canada pension, don't it come with my Canada pension check? Oh, no, he said, we send this separate.
Yeah,
and then he said, well, I said, well, you can send it to my address. Oh, no, he said, that we got to more or less put it in my bank account. I said, really? I said, by the way, I got to ask you a question now. Why is it, I said, there's no number coming on my phone? It's a private number. Oh, he said, you know, a few people said that to me. I said, oh, yeah, really? So anyway, he'd come back to, I suppose, wanting it to go in my bank account. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't give out no information about my bank account or anything like that over the phone.
Proper thing,
well,
Linda.
He said, I need it, he said, in order to send it to you. Well, I said, boy, I guess I won't be getting it.
I guess I won't be getting it. I wasn't getting it anyway, and you're not getting my money either.
No, and then, click. So just a minute ago, while I was waiting, before I decided to call you, I said, I'm going to try. He gave me a number. So I tried that number. That's not even in service.
Yeah. No, don't. Just because he gives you a number doesn't mean it's going to be legit either. Linda, I'm glad you raised that because I did see a bit of chatter on the old social media on the weekend of a very similar nature, and the name was Mark, saying that we got some money for you. Just give us your bank account. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you raised that publicly, and that people will be on the ready like you have been. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Yes, yeah. Well, I just want to, because, the way he's asking the questions and this and that, he could fool some people.
Yeah, but not you.
But I always tell him my mother didn't raise a fool.
There you go. Linda, appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much for taking this for me.
Alrighty.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Yes, and you can almost guarantee that any benefit that is coming your way is already going to be incorporated into whatever benefits you already receive. And you shouldn't have to give them any additional information through an unsolicited phone call. We're up to news time. We have Jim Dinn is coming up after the news, right after this.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And we're back on VOCM Open Line. We are going now to leader of the New Democratic Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, Mr. Jim Dinn. Hello.
Hello, Linda. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, no trouble. So, lots of things to talk about.
Yes, it's been. I got to say, it's a wild weekend since Friday, and I think what I want to talk about first, make sure I get this in, and the reason I'm calling, sort of in context of all that, we're having a panel discussion on food insecurity this Wednesday from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Wesley United Church on Patrick Street, and so that'll be this Wednesday, August 26th, and it's one that we've organized here, our caucus, and it's in my district, but it's one that I would say that a lot of people are probably even more worried about now, considering the news that with regards to the breakdown negotiations. But it is one on a panel discussion on food insecurity. Sharon Callahan, who's well known for involvement with retired Canadian Association of Retired Persons, Coalition of Newfoundland and Labrador Pensioners, and she's been a member of the Seniors Advisory Committee for St. John's, and so on and so forth. She will be the one who is moderating this, and she speaks certainly from the concerns of retired people who are on fixed incomes. And we have as panelists Josh Smee, who's the CEO of Food First NL, Leslie Burgess, who's the Executive Director of Bridges to Hope. We've got Allison Snow and Greg Hewlett, both the Chair and Executive Director of the Food Producers Forum, and we have Danielle Seward, who is the Executive Director of the Senior Parents Association, to speak about, I guess, what food insecurity means from the various points of view. And I couldn't help but I was listening to the callers previous to this, and they were talking about housing, heating. We looked at, we know that food is a significant, when it comes to a budget necessity. We know that people are struggling with medications, and all that is in the, I guess, within the look at the Churchill Falls deal and the tariffs, the tariff war, and that's going on between Canada and the U.S. And it's no doubt it's having an effect. But we know before a lot of this that when it came to buying good quality food, it's been an issue, and it's becoming a significant expense, and people were to the point where they could no longer afford to eat well. So that's why we said we've had a number of town halls when it comes to housing, affordable housing, electricity, and this is another one now with regards to on food that we want to have, especially before the House opens up at the end of October.
And where's it all going to end, Jim? Because the big question now is that, what kind of an impact will these tariffs have on us if they, in fact, stay in place and we do the reciprocal tariffs and all of that sort of stuff? It's going to increase the cost of living for
big time, and I know it's I've thought about, what does food insecurity mean? In some ways, let's call it hunger. For some families, that's exactly what it means, is hunger. I look at, there are a lot of people who might be going out, who might be able to afford to go out to a restaurant. They might still be doing that, so they're not being impacted. They're paying more, and they've got the income to do that. Others might have cut back that, or some people have never been able to afford to go to a restaurant, but now they're just struggling to even get the basic necessities. And you're right. Where does it all end? I know for many years I spent, I was a volunteer with the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and we acted basically primarily as a food bank, and I got to go into, we got to deliver hampers to many people's homes, and that's where I guess, if nothing else, I saw the need to have decent, affordable housing. But when people, maybe we're meant to be an emergency place for people to run short every now and again. But we found very quickly that people were factoring that into the monthly budget, and I would say that such as the Bridges to Hope and other food banks, they're probably finding the same. The other thing we found is that people were needing it more frequently, and there were people who had never visited a food bank before for the first time. And seniors on fixed incomes, people on income support, fixed incomes, young families. If they had any number of children at all, it became an issue with regards to, like, even going back to school. How do you make sure children are fed in the summertime if they don't have access to the school lunch program and so on and so forth? Added to that, when it comes to heating and everything else, we've tried for a number of things. That rebate on removal of the HST of home heating, the removal of the HST of children's necessities, and yet we know that people are still struggling, and we know that a lot of life choices are going to, because of this, are going to be impacted. So you look at someone who's diabetic and needs to eat healthy. How do they do that? So one of the things I guess that what I would hope out of this forum is to have that discussion. Two of the groups is about more or less food producers forum. It's about how do we strengthen our local food production and maybe make the province less dependent on imported food. And how do we do that in a way that is also good, nutritious food, locally grown, locally supplied, and affordable. That's one option for sure.
Jim, the provincial government has hinted at this most recently during the budget, the talks after the budget and that, about affordability measures. And Newfoundland and Labrador, of course, benefits from revenue that goes up exponentially for every dollar in oil production, for instance, when the price of a barrel of oil goes up by $1. So there have been hints that some more affordability measures are coming. What would you like to see?
Well, one thing I would say over the years, especially since I've been in this role, is often when it comes to the bureaucracy around it as to who is entitled to what and so on and so forth, and it becomes a lot. I guess it's not as streamlined as it could be, so people aren't getting the help they need. I would like to see, certainly when it comes to the income thresholds that people are using, that we realize that what was considered what's considered a poverty line now, or where people are struggling, is not what it was many years ago. So you look at the income thresholds. There are people who are living at seniors who want to stay in their own place, but they're making too much money. They might have been retired for a decade, but now they're still making too much money to qualify for grants, and we know that what they're making is not going to is not enough for them to stay put. We know that I would like to see a program as what we recommend that we did do on like guaranteed basic income. We did do a report on that. It was never released. We had to table it in the House of Assembly ourselves to get it released. A guaranteed basic income that would actually make sure that people are that they don't fall below that poverty line where they can still afford to eat well. We want to see also, I guess, not only the thresholds, but when it comes to the measures, how do you make it as fair and not as so much fair, but make sure that the amounts that are being given are brought up to an acceptable level and then indexed to the cost of living. We want, when it comes to seniors, I find anything they're the ones that are struggling. In many cases, those who are renting are watching their rents go up significantly each year over year, and it doesn't take much, even if the rent is going up by $50 a month year after year, before it eats into your income and into your retirement income, and you're facing eviction. So how about looking at right now bringing in some rent and vacancy control to make sure that these large financialized landlords do not do that? And I think also we really need to get our act together and build more non-market community-based housing, more publicly owned social housing, so that the focus is on making sure people remain housed. And these measures together, along with making sure we grow more of our own food and that we find ways to increase that local food production, which helps farmers and produce good, healthy food. Those are the measures, I think. It's got to be a comprehensive approach. I'm under no illusions that bringing in one measure by itself will solve it, but I do think the big factor that affects a person's ability to afford to eat well is income, and that's the main thing we do have to address.
Looking forward to the debate.
Perfect. Oh, the debate on the House?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's and that's been weighing heavy on my mind too. I heard a few of your callers this morning talk about that, and I'm going to say this: we're like the NDP, and I personally am taking going to this the same approach. Overall, is this a better deal? There's no such thing as a perfect deal. We have questions around the when it comes to the return that we're getting for the power, and will it benefit the people of Newfoundland and Labrador? Will it benefit how will it impact the people of Labrador who depend on this energy to expand their own communities and the mining industries? What really frustrated me, I guess, about this for the last year and a bit is it became a political football, became an election issue. There are a lot of promises made around it, and in the end, all we wanted is a transparent process where we could assess it. And in the end, Linda, like if we walk away from this, and I don't know, and maybe we should, but what does this mean for the many people young people who might be wanting to move here and maybe they don't see the opportunity? What does it mean for the tax base if we're looking to make sure that seniors, that people on fixed incomes and so on and so forth can afford food? So there are a lot of things that weigh on my mind with this one, but I'll be looking forward to the debate. It's going to be interesting to see, I guess, who we are allowed to ask the questions of. And that will be the key thing. If it's just the negotiating team, that pales in comparison to what we had the last time in 2025, when we had access not only to the negotiating teams, we had access to Power Advisory, J.P. Morgan, a number of and we could ask it some in-depth questions. So it comes down to how transparent this process is going to be. So it has implications. But anyway.
Jim Dinn, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
And just one last thing, Linda, please, I encourage anyone who has any concerns around food insecurity and has an idea, wants to learn from the people we have, they're the panelists, and wants to contribute, please join us at the Wesley United Church this Wednesday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. We want to hear you, and we'd love for you to attend and hear what people have to say as well. Thank you very much.
Jim Dinn, thank you. Bye-bye. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we're back. Linda Swain in for Brian Callahan, who should be back in the saddle again tomorrow. We're going now to Mitchell. You're on the air. Hi, Mitchell.
Did I get you there?
Yes. How you doing?
Okay, perfect. Not too bad. Colin, as somebody who works in information technology, just kind of with a different perspective that I don't hear too often about the Muskrat Falls Agreement. And I hear about using the electricity for our own industry, but it's not always talked about what the industry will be, especially going forward. Look at the manufacturing and the minerals that are in Labrador, which is great and all, and I think we should be doing that. But also, when we look at a 15-year time span, which is when the 2041 agreement, I think, will be up, what could we be doing in that 15 years? Because I don't think it's a great agreement. I don't always agree with Mark Carney on a lot of things, but what I've been hearing a lot about the recent trade deal that was down there, no agreement is better than a bad agreement. I think the same thing kind of applies here. I don't think we should be jumping into something that ties us in, as a previous caller today said, for 50 years, especially with the volatility of everything. So from a tech perspective, the biggest thing that's growing right now are data centers. Love them or hate them, they seem pretty inevitable. Would I be right in saying that?
There's certainly going to be a need for them.
Like, love them or hate them, I think it's going to happen, and it's kind of out of our control. So I think that is an area which we should consider. Labrador, perfectly positioned, colder climate, and these things can't be built overnight anyway. So if we're just looking at 15 years to get the infrastructure up and running with the electricity that we do have access to there now, why should we give it to Quebec for 50 years so they can fuel their tech industry? Because they have a bunch of data centers up there as well. They're like big companies, Vantage, Qscale, OVH Cloud, billions in dollars, which why can't we have some of it? And if we use that money to further develop Labrador, you got this Team Labrador and everything going up there, like they should be exploring that side of things. Especially if we want to look at a climate change perspective. It's like that is such a strategic area that I think tying our electricity up with Quebec for 50 years, especially if it's not going to bring our rates down as much as Quebec's are, it's a disgusting discrepancy or disparity, I guess is a better word, in terms of what they're paying versus what we're already paying.
Yeah, and they've been very oblique when they talk about, building industry and growing industry in this province. You're right. I think everybody kind of understands that there's a possibility that data centers could be part of this conversation, but nobody's actually saying it.
No, and you kind of go back to the Bay of Nord and everything, and like that's another thing that they could be using the electricity for. I feel like we're the only person to benefit from a rushed agreement is the person who currently has the upper hand, and that is Quebec, because they own all the transmission capability to get to the outside markets. Well, why don't we start focusing on bringing the outside markets in? And Bay of Nord, if we're looking at going green, we're not going to just jump directly to going green, but LNG, it's another thing that it all ties into what we could be doing. You have electric liquefaction that's there. You don't need to use fossil fuels to refine it. So we can have the greenest LNG in the world. These are all things that Newfoundland could be exporting. We use that electricity to process our oil and gas, our steel, all those stuff there, versus giving it away. Like that's the way it really does feel. For the sake of 15 years, I think we're a pretty resilient population. So to be able to put up for another 15 years, even if it does, like the previous caller today said, there's a lot of short-term that we're going to have to compromise on, like a lot of different services and everything that this short-term cash would benefit. But I don't think we have a good track record of dealing with influxes of cash. I think it gets blown on things that weren't very thought out.
Well, the Premier has long said that, he wasn't interested in what he called artificial deadlines, but it's become clear that there were deadlines involved in this.
Absolutely. Like whether he wants it to be an artificial one or not, it seems when it comes to media and the portrayed public opinion, everybody's like in such a rush to make this deal happen. When 15 years isn't that long when you really think about stuff, especially for these long-term growth. And I don't think it's something that we should shy far away from. And just kind of wanted to put a couple of those ideas into the air, talking about the technology that could be there. And that's kind of short-term. You look at some of the big data centers down in the States and how quick they're able to spin those up. It's like we can start small and we can increase pretty big. Like once we start getting that power for ourselves, so if we're tapering off of what we're selling to Quebec, you can scale pretty quickly with this stuff. As the biggest constraint for data centers isn't the computers and stuff that you're putting in them, it's electricity. There's companies like Microsoft, they have hardware just stored away because they're waiting for access to electricity. They're ready to build.
Electricity and
want
water, yeah.
cheap, reliable electricity. And the water and everything, like hopefully they'll come out with some more closed loop stuff, so that's kind of less of an issue. But it's one of those things I feel is pretty much out of our control. So if we can at least direct it in some way that we could benefit from it. We might as well get something from it if it's going to happen anyways.
Mitchell, thanks for your input this morning.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right, have a great day.
Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to speak with John right after this.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
And we're back. We're going now to John. You're on the air. Hi, John.
Hi, Linda. It's a long time no chat.
Yeah, indeed.
You may remember me as the very proud owner of Millie the Beagle.
Yes.
And the last time we talked, I think we were talking about the space shuttle docking with the ISS.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time ago. That's before Mr. Yeah. I'm not going to ask you anything, but I just turned 74. Okay, so I was walking down. I walk my dogs on Prince Philip Drive from Moxon Pond Road down as far as University Avenue. And I noticed last night that there's still a sign up bragging proudly about an infrastructure project. Now, if you are eastbound on Prince Philip and you are a BEAM, the Mental Health and Addiction Center, on the right-hand side, there's a little sign there talking about Minister Fred Hutton. And he's no longer a minister. I don't even know if he even got reelected. And I'm just wondering, we put the cat among the pigeons and see how fast we can get that sign torn down if anybody in the authority is listening.
So that's the sign for what?
Was some infrastructure improvement to do with sewers or something. They were building this before they built Fortis Field. And anyway, you know how they put signs on the highway saying so-and-so, such and such a project, so many $1 million, and this one has Fred Hutton identified as the minister.
Okay.
And he hasn't been the minister in a couple of years. Anyway, so I wanted to throw that at you, and I did just catch part of what you're talking with Jim Din, and just want to remind you that Trump's tariffs are paid on the American side of the border.
Mm-hmm.
If we export into the United States, we don't pay those tariffs.
No,
but
our markets probably dry up.
No, well, it doesn't necessarily dry up. We have, elasticity of supply and demand. Depending how bad they need it, they will still import it. Mm-hmm. Now, and the big one is that seafood is on the list of stuff that's exempt.
Okay.
I don't know if you've followed that. Oil from Alberta is exempt. Mm-hmm. They're not. Trump isn't dumb. I mean, he's probably dumb enough, but somebody stops him from putting it on Alberta oil, because that would be lovely.
Well, yeah, there's all kinds of things that are currently protected under CUSMA that will remain so.
Yeah. And things they have specifically excluded under Smoot-Hawley. And a lot of those things are protected by CUSMA, and these tariffs are illegal, and it's a long legal fight. But I just wanted to point that out, that the American consumer, and there's a report published a few months ago by the Federal Reserve of New York, that 90% of the tariffs are paid by American consumers. I think it's 93% or something. And so that's one issue. Now, to go back to your gentleman who was talking about the hydroelectricity and putting data centers in Labrador, one of the largest costs in operating a data center is cooling. And that's one of the things that drives the electricity, because they have to run air conditioners. If you're building a data center in Louisiana, you've got to cool it with a heat pump, basically, an air conditioner. And there's an awful lot of cold water in those rivers in Labrador. And that's additional energy savings for putting a data center in Labrador. And the other aspect of this whole negotiation is Quebec needs us a lot more than we need them. They need that power for the future industrialization of Quebec. And I think the Premier and CFLCO should hire consultants in demolition to go through and identify the cost
of demolishing everything that connects the Churchill Falls power plant to Quebec. And we'll say, no, we're going to disconnect it from you, and too bad. And, if we have to blow stuff up, we blow stuff up. But, there are some nasty people in the world like Elon Musk who want to build data centers. And if they can get that added savings of cooling it with cold water, and also in Labrador in the wintertime, you just cool it with cold air. So that's another aspect of that I think should be drawn to the attention. And Quebec need us a lot more than we need them. And as we approach 2041 or 2042, whatever it is, they need us more and more and more, and it gets more expensive for them to build crash programs to build generation capacity, wind farms, solar farms, et cetera, in Quebec to make up that power. And just the premier should, if they don't like it, and if they get some stupid regime that wants to claim Labrador as property of Quebec, which has been settled in law, it's settled in constitutional law, if you get that other party in Quebec, you just call everything off and say, call us in 2041 when you're desperate, and we'll sell you power at market rate. In the meantime, we should just plan for data centers, because we have that extra cooling that they don't have in Texas and Louisiana.
John, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda, and you have a wonderful day. And the sun is shining warmly on me.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
John,
great, isn't it?
It is. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We're going to go now to Rod. You're on the air. Hi, Rod.
Hi, Linda. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Linda, the reason I called in today is I've been reading some posts on the topic of Churchill Falls and the other projects by a gentleman by the name of Greg Roberts. I don't know if you've heard of them or if your listeners have heard of them, but if they're looking for really good, accessible information on this project, I would urge your listeners to Google or to look up this gentleman, Greg Roberts. I thank him publicly now for his service, for what he's doing, in analyzing and putting a lot of information available for people to look at. And one of the posts that I looked at recently really helped me to crystallize my thoughts on this issue, because even from the beginning, even the Liberals proposed their project, and now the PCs are proposing their project, I'm against both of them. I'm not anti-liberal or anti-PC. I am pro-dollar. I am pro-money for us and getting what I think is rightfully ours for our current and future generations. If you look at and read some of the posts that Greg has put on, you will notice that on Churchill Falls alone, just isolating that project, because this has been one of the problems from the very beginning, is that there's too much bundled in it to purposely confuse everybody who wants to try to understand what this is all about. And if you were to just look at Churchill Falls on its face, just that alone, based on some of the information that I've read that he's posted, the Churchill Falls project should be given us, if we were only to split 50-50 between us and Quebec, what is rightfully, ours, we would be looking at between $2 and $2.5 billion per year, just based on splitting the revenues equally at current market rates, electricity at current market rates. And I compare that to the $1 billion that is being on offer versus the 2 to 2.5 if we were only to split it 50-50. And if you were to go a little further and say, well, perhaps we should be sharing it based on the ownership of the Churchill Falls, us having 2/3 and Quebec having 1/3, we should be closer to $3 and $3.5 billion based on current and future electricity prices. So I think the deal as it is currently constituted is still grossly unfair. It's abominable what we're thinking about doing, and I hope that people understand this and raise their voices and voice their opinions and get somebody to look at this that is not so concerned about getting elected. I know why our current government wants to do it. An additional $1 billion a year today is pretty good in our environment when you think about all the needs we have. But for God's sakes, don't cut off our nose to spite our faces.
Rod, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. We are up to a break, but I'll take Phil Earle quickly. Hello, Phil.
Yes, hi, good morning. Well, I was listening to David Barty, and I have to make a comment. We're blessed in Newfoundland to have him up in his 80s, one of the great economists in North America. His passion and love for Newfoundland has never changed. But Linda, I wanted to say something very briefly about the deal, what's happening between Quebec, or they're trying between Quebec and Newfoundland over the hydro. Mark Twain wrote a book, I think a couple of 100 years ago, about the Mississippi River, and it's called Huckleberry Finn. And there was a scene in there where Huck Finn was painting his fence. And along came a little friend, a buddy of his, chewing an apple, eating an apple. And Mark said to him, "Hey, if you give me a bite of your apple, I'll let you paint my fence." And this is exactly what Quebec is doing to us. They're saying, if you give us this deal, we'll take your power, 75 or 80% of it. We should be the major owners of it, not 40 or 35%. We should be 75%. But the image reminds me of Huck Finn asking for the young fellow to give him a bite of the apple and take over and do the work. That's what Quebec is doing. That's what I wanted to say.
Phil Earle, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to speak with the Finance Minister of Newfoundland and Labrador, Mr. Craig Party, coming up right after this. And we're back into the final few minutes of the show. We're going to go now to the Finance Minister, President of Treasury Board, and Minister responsible for NLC, Mr. Craig Party, among other things. Hello.
Linda, good morning to you. Great to be with you.
Yes, absolutely. And I had been reaching out to government on the weekend, of course, since Mr. Carney spoke out about the walking away from trade talks with the United States, and it's going to have an impact right across Canada, as we all know. What kind of an impact will these 50% tariffs and potentially retaliatory tariffs have here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, I think the 338 tariffs that were launched by by President Trump on us now, I think the national media would have covered it, and I know we've seen it quite often. We were impacted very little on those products that were. That's not to say we're not impacted, but certainly not as much as BC, Ontario, and Quebec would be impacted with those latest tariffs that they're issuing. So one would think that we're in unknown territory now, in uncharted waters, that what may arise in the following days and weeks, it's uncertain. So we really need to be prepared to make sure that we do be able to respond to anything that would impact those people with small, medium, and even the large businesses in Newfoundland and Labrador. And a lot could happen now in the following days and weeks. I'm heading to Iqaluit tomorrow morning now to participate in internal trade conversations, so I'll probably have more when I return on Friday as far as what the potential impacts may be, and we get a feel as to where things are going as far as the potential of returning to, negotiations.
So what kind of action is the Newfoundland and Labrador government contemplating or willing to take to assist local business and industry if it comes to that?
Well, you had heard Prime Minister Carney's speech, is that the plans are ongoing now that to look at what we can do to provide support for businesses that are affected. In fact, all finance ministers are meeting at this afternoon at 4 o'clock. And I guess that's our first foray into it before we get to Iqaluit tomorrow. So we're very much now in the planning phase, because I, like you and like many others, figure that this deal would have been consummated, at the end of last week. So we were a little surprised that it didn't happen, but there it is.
A little surprised, and I think in some cases this has become par for the course.
Oh, you've got that right, Linda. 100% par for the course, and I would think unpredictability. We've lived that for, the past couple of years.
You've spoken about this before, but you had hinted some time ago about the possibility of affordability measures coming sometime early in the fall. Is that still something that the government is looking at?
Yes, it is. Yep. And again, I think we're par for the course that it's 80-20, 80 towards that we would look at our reducing our borrowing requirements and servicing our debt, and 20% into affordability measures. So yes, we'll do that. Linda, is it possible to weigh in a little bit on the Churchill Falls agreement?
100%. I wouldn't expect anything otherwise.
Thank you. I realize, and I can go back to in the previous 2024 MOU, it takes a while to get an understanding as to where things are into the agreement. I would really suggest that for many people to wait until the 14th in order to draw conclusions on what the deal has and what it hasn't. And I know that's a ways away, that you're looking at some weeks, but I would think we'll have a much clearer picture without any speculation after that, and then the debate will follow once everyone has been apprised of what the details that would be in the agreement. I think people are confused. I shouldn't say confused. Even my wife had called last night and said, there is no escalator in the pricing. And I said, Mary, there's certainly an escalation in, the Hydro-Quebec pricing for Churchill Falls Power. Yes, it is. And she said, that's not what I'm hearing. So I realize there's a lot of people that are speculative, but all I can say is that we believe it to be a much better deal than what we had, and we believe it to be a good deal. And I know that Newfoundlanders and Labradorians will determine as to whether the deal is a good one, and whether it's the best one that they would think that we can gather. And I'll leave that to to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians in the feedback that we're getting now as MHAs and in government, even up to the 14th, that what we've got. One thing I would suggest, we've always stated, and even the previous government stated, we've talked about the economic development in Labrador as being key to revenue. We never had the power. In fact, Labrador West would tell you now that they don't have the power even now for adding on residential homes. That's where it is in Lab West. We need more power for development. And keep in mind that in the last budget, we had revenue of $10.7 billion in this province in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we had expenditures of 11.4, which we usually have more expenditures than what we've got revenue, with a deficit of $688 million. But remember now, 10.7 billion is our revenue. There's people stating that wait till 2041. Why not wait till 2041? We could have 4 mines up and running in economic development and GDP before 2041. In fact, our calculations, which I'm not sure it's out public yet, but at least I'll sneak them out, Linda. We're looking at in GDP, which we're leading the country now, but with this agreement, then we're looking at $13 billion in hydro and GDP being added, $2.6 billion in wind, and $19 billion in mining. We've done an economic analysis in the finance, and we looked at what the generation would be for the revenue coming into the province, and we think that the mining and the industrial development, we've talked about data centers, though that is where the economic gain is going to be strong for Newfoundland and Labrador. And I know that in the short time I've got, if someone is going to state that the return that Hydro-Quebec is going to be paying the province of Newfoundland and Labrador for the Churchill Falls Power is not going to be a strong return, then I would suggest you can look at Annex D in the agreement that's there, and you look at what it means to the coffers of Newfoundland and Labrador. So if you're looking at 2033, Hydro-Quebec, via the Churchill Falls PPA, we will have over $1 billion coming into revenue into our coffers. And in 2041, when the current deal would elapse, the one that we currently operate under, it would be $2.769 billion in revenue from this proposed Churchill Falls agreement. Now, if someone said we're going to wait, that is significant numbers, adding to the mining GDP that we've got, added to the oil and gas that we've got, and I would think that we've got a good prospect for the future on revenue. And Linda, just to throw out a couple of figures that, again, in the agreement on NXD would be 2050 would be $3.8 billion, 2057 $4.2, 2070 $5.5. Keep in mind, we have an economy that's $11 billion. And I know that's going to increase, but we're talking significant money with this agreement into the coffers of Newfoundland and Labrador and into the economic development into the province. And I know as a finance minister, I'm intrigued by it all, and I know that I am excited about it, but I know it's important that the details get out on the 14th for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to make sure that they have a good analysis and, weigh in on the agreement.
Minister Party, I appreciate that. You must have a stopwatch. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda. All the best.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we'll be back tomorrow. Brian Callahan should be back in the saddle by then. Thanks, everyone, for your contributions. Really appreciated this. Had a lot of fun the last 2 days. Sarah Strickland is up next with your news at noon on VOCM.